In concluding this wide-ranging agreement, we have done so on the basis of advancing the security of our nation, building prosperity for all, and supporting an exit from the European Union.
It's finally a done deal. After weeks of negotiations, UK Prime Minister Theresa May will stay in power through a pact with Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party. The agreement is simple. The DUP's 10 members of Parliament vote with the Tories on issues such as Brexit, while the Conservatives cut the region a cheque for more than $1 billion. Leftists are horrified, among them Ireland's Sinn Féin party, who says the DUP is anti-Catholic and will put at risk the Good Friday Agreement, which ended 30 years of sectarian war in Ireland. Well, for those who think that Theresa May has made a deal with the devil, we're actually going to talk to a Roman Catholic priest. With us from Washington, D.C. is Father Sean McManus, who, for the discussion at hand, is the founder and president of the Irish National Caucus. Thanks so much for joining us, Father McManus. So, do you believe that Theresa May made a deal with the devil?
Well, the DUP in Northern Ireland is best known for being deeply anti-Catholic. It was founded on a platform of anti-Catholicism by the little church that later founded the party. And the man who founded the little sectarian church was Ian Paisley. He's dead now, God rest him. But he came to power by preaching horrible anti-Catholic bigotry, and he convinced the Protestants of Northern Ireland that their other leaders had gone soft on Catholics and that only he could save Northern Ireland. So Paisley himself came to power on a horrible platform of anti-Catholicism. Now, in fairness to him, and I've met him several times and I always had a friendly attitude towards him, in his later years, he mellowed and softened and changed his position a bit. But it's important to remember, when he did that, his own church fired him, pushed him out. He lost his own church, and then his own party, which he founded, the DUP, and which had originally worshipped at his shrine, when he softened his position, the DUP leadership moved him out, fired him, dumped him. So what does that tell you about the current leadership of the DUP?
That's a fair point, right?
Sacked.
Sure, that's a fair point. However, might it be a reasonable argument to come back to you with the fact that a lot of modern political parties have had fairly dodgy roots? Where you are, you know, the Democrat Party was in many ways the party that was pro-slavery. It turned out to be the party that was then pro-civil rights 100 years later, right? Don't you want to give them the benefit of doubt that maybe they have evolved, they are evolving, and in this quid pro quo of politics, none of those anti-Catholic views, which might still exist among some members of the party, none of those anti-Catholic views might actually be put into practice as they are in government?
Well, from your lips to God's ear, I hope that happens too. But let me give you a current example. There's a particular area in Northern Ireland that is meant to be a shared neighborhood between Protestants and Catholics, and the whole place has been festooned with flags and emblems glorifying anti-Catholic murder gangs. And the DUP were asked to use their influence to get this horrible anti-Catholic flags and emblems removed. And the DUP leadership said, there's no demand for that, so there's nothing we can do. Now, that's not quite encouraging, unfortunately.
Right. So let's hope that, you know, sectarianism doesn't flare up again. Now, talking about the Good Friday Agreement, which had a lot to do with sectarianism, it had a lot to do with other politics and other stuff in the mixer as well. Sinn Féin and others are saying that the DUP's deal with Theresa May, or Theresa May's deal with the DUP, means that the Good Friday Agreement is under threat. Do you believe it's under threat?
Well, you see, here's the essence of the Good Friday government. The British government, for the first time ever, made a solemn pledge to treat both communities in Northern Ireland, the Catholic and Protestant community, with equality and respect and with impartiality. Now, it's hard to see how they will continue to do that when, in fact, they're sharing power and a coalition government, in effect, with one party.
Right.
How will that work? You know, how does the British government say to the other party, we are going to treat you equally as we treat the DUP,
well,
the other party
this is in the text of their agreement, and I apologize for interrupting you, Father. In the 3-page text, that agreement with the Tories, between the Tories and the DUP, they say explicitly, and I'm going to quote it, both parties will adhere to the commitments in the Good Friday Agreement. So they're saying it. They're saying, hey, you know what? Northern Ireland, we're not going to mess with it. This is just a tactical alliance because Theresa May called an early election. She messed up. She had to look for allies. She found these allies. They're in a certain place and they give her 10 votes when she needs 10 votes. No more, no less. They're not going to touch Northern Ireland. It's not going to be trouble.
Well, I mean, what else would Theresa May say? She wasn't going to publicly admit that this could demolish the Good Friday Agreement. And, you know, there's a long history in Ireland of Britain breaking its pledges. So there's understandable concern. Now, I hope to God that somehow this rather impossible arrangement might work out okay, but I have serious problems with it. But I hope for the best, of course.
Invariably, has this weakened the UK's relationship with the Republic of Ireland, and does that worry you?
Well, yes. I mean, the Republic of Ireland, which historically hasn't been all that strong in standing up for justice in Northern Ireland until fairly recently, and they've been pretty good recently, they too have expressed concern. You see, power's a very corrupting thing, as we all know. And the situation in reality is that the May government will be totally dependent on 10 votes from Northern Ireland. And at any given time, Arlene Foster, my neighbour, she's from my same county in Ireland, and I have nothing but good wishes and good hopes for her. She at any time can say to Mrs. May, Theresa, unless you give us this, unless you give the DUP party this, we'll pull the plug on your government. I mean, now that's the reality of the situation.
Do you have a message for Arlene Foster?
Yes, and for Mrs. May. And I've made this call. The easiest way for both good ladies to demonstrate that the bad old days are over is for both of them to use their power, considerable power, to repeal the anti-Catholic act that is still the foundation stone of the royal family, the Act of Settlement of 1701, for God's sake. And under that act, today, a Catholic cannot be King or Queen of England. It is state-sponsored anti-Catholicism, state-sponsored sectarianism and discrimination, and it would be a magnificent signal for both ladies to call for its repeal. It's like having in the American Constitution a provision prohibiting a black person being president of the United States. What American would stand for that? So that's what I appeal to these two ladies. Make your mark on history. Get rid of this anti-Catholic act that is a total disgrace for modern England.
Father Sean McManus, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you very much.